Andrei here, graphics expert. I'm just starting off this project. Oh, it's interesting, they've changed the folder. Okay, anyway, let's jump in here and I guess we'll start with the shaders. Just keep it super simple. We're going to be loading in a color and then we're going to change that, or sort of apply that color in the fragment shader, because that'll make it quicker to change colors on the fly if we need to. Okay, so here we'll start off with our renderer and we're going to sort of declare the public interface that any sort of rendering class will have. No functions will be implemented here, we're just sort of declaring the shape of the class, if you will. Now I was going to call this resources, but when I think resources, I think probably frame buffers. I'm probably going to, in the future, make another class to represent frame buffers and things, and yeah. Now I've just realized that all my files have been .text, but I could change them to .vert and .frag. The benefit of that is that it'll kind of be more standardized, and then in my shader loader function I can append the vert and frag to the file name, and that'll be maybe easier to work with, I don't know. So here I'm just setting up the textured shader, and the only difference is we have another attribute, which is the texture coordinate. So we pass the texture coordinate along to the fragment, sample the fragment, multiply it with the color, the object color, and it'll do the same thing. We'll have a textured thing. Just setting up a utility function to load shaders, and I guess it's a little wasteful to have a utility function inside every class, so I'm just going to do it externally like a library of functions. Now this is what I meant about keeping that vert and frag extension separate. Alright, so we need to import these constants, but we can see that, yeah. I don't want to import the whole OpenGL library, just those constants are fine. And now I'm making a concrete instantiation of the class. Now, I learnt about this recently, it's called slots. If we don't declare slots, then the class is completely freeform and it has a dictionary representing its underlying instance variables. The issue with the dictionary is it's less performant, but if we declare slots, we declare explicitly which variables the class is going to have. Then it sort of uses a tuple under the hood to represent them, which is a little bit faster. Having said that, I've run this on a number of tests and I can't seem to use slots to actually make the program faster. But in theory it's an improvement, so I'm going to go with it. Here I guess I'm making a coffee or something, I don't know what I'm doing here. Yeah, so the idea is I'll sort of make a 1 by 1 rectangle and then I'll scale it accordingly. So the scale will be applied in the model transform. Now I know scaling, especially non-uniform scaling, isn't great, but it's okay if we're not doing lighting. Now you notice that, what is it? There's enable vertex attrib array and enable array attrib or something. Like there's a weird thing in OpenGL where it's the same function, but like the names are reversed. The reason for that is that after OpenGL 4 point something, OpenGL made something called direct state access, which means that you don't need to sort of bind things. You can just say, I want to work with, I want to work with like array number 3 or something, or buffer number 3, and it just does it straight away. You don't need to bind things. But they did have to rename a bunch of their other functions, even though the functions kind of did the same thing. So that's the reason that some functions are like double named. It's legacy code basically. So here I'm sort of just sketching out how is my renderer going to use the information that I've got. Hey, I hope that Andy and Andrew haven't changed the spec in this first hour. But if they do, I guess I'll have to go back and change it. But yeah, so I'm just kind of sketching out the basic steps involved, and then I'll be filling these in later. Just helps me to organize my thoughts. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the GitHub page, looking at the documentation that we've written together so far, and deciding, okay, how would I sort of draw these objects? Because the code hasn't been written, but I sort of have a description of what it's going to be. And yeah, just going through the standard stuff of setting up OpenGL. I'm going to have a bunch of different renderers, so I'm not going to do the job of creating the windows, setting the window size and all of that. The top-level control game object will probably do that. We'll have the same OpenGL context. We'll just be creating and destroying shaders as we need. Yeah, so other important steps is sort of querying the shader locations and setting the data that we sort of need to set once. I don't think this GUI renderer is going to have one-time data, but it should be in the public interface. And yeah, you can see what we're doing here, just grabbing the shader locations. But yeah, pretty much that's it. I'm just setting the appropriate shader uses, and yeah, like I said. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed seeing what I've been up to this hour, and yeah, I'll just go ahead, push that, and that'll be it. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again soon. Bye.